Hey, look, thanks everybody for coming. The reason why I'm on the mid-north coast, apart from enjoying the scenery meeting up with you all, is because of what the O'Farrell government is doing to the education system. We're very concerned about $1.8 billion being cut out of public schools and TAFE colleges without any warning during the election. Leslie Williams was elected. Never did she say, oh, by the way, folks, I'm going to destroy TAFE, and I'm going to take a big chunk of money. I'm going to get rid of 1,000 employees from the public education system. That was never mentioned. For the mid-north coast, it's a specifically worrying issue because while the economy in Port Macquarie is quite strong, not so much in Coffs Harbour, it's a very vulnerable economy. It really is determined by tourism, and it's determined by aged care and by construction. And without quality skills formation, each of those industries could very easily experience a massive downturn, creating substantial unemployment. Our concern, our overriding concern with all of this is that education is a kind of promise that was made to everybody. It's the glue that holds society together. The reason why people live in a society is they believe they're getting something from it. It's a social contract, and at the core of that social contract is a public education system. It guarantees everybody a quality education. There's a statue of Edmund Barton over there, and Edmund Barton has been on a massive diet. I don't think he ever looked like that. He's more like me than like that.
Something's happened to his limb.
Yeah, but nonetheless, one of Edmund Barton's colleagues was a guy called Henry Parkes. And they actually like each other all that much, but they worked together on creating federation. And in many senses, that was Edmund Barton's greatest contribution, was a constitution. But Henry Parkes' greatest contribution was a Public Instruction Act 132 years ago, which was a commitment to everybody, no matter where they lived in New South Wales, no matter what the circumstances of their parents were, no matter what their level of ability or disability was, they would get an education. And that promise is now at risk. The O'Farrell government has taken out 350 positions from head office. And these are positions with people who do things like develop the drug and alcohol counselling materials, people who develop the curriculum materials, particularly in the arts area, in the environment area, people who provide expert support to teachers, and people who provide administrative support. They're also taking another 650 positions out of regions and schools, all the way down to the people in the front office of a school who answer the telephone. Each and every one of those people who disappears, so they promise we won't take away any of the frontline workers. This is the O'Farrell government's myth. There are frontline workers and there are back office workers. But if you don't have people answering the phones in a school, talking to parents, preparing the reports, photocopying the materials, guess who has to do that? It's the teachers who have to do that. The teachers have to do it, they have less time to spend with students. The students who will suffer, exactly the same as at universities, and the students who will suffer are those who have the greatest degree of academic challenge. The students who struggle, generally from disadvantaged backgrounds, many of them Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, many of them kids from families that have significant social problems. Those are the kids who will suffer. Now, O'Farrell says, look, we're saving about $1.2 billion out of schools, and we need that to balance the budget. But you don't actually save money when you cut education. You avoid expenditure today, but you create more expenditure in the future. Every teacher in public education costs about $95,000 to employ. Every adult male who is in jail costs the state $110,000 a year. So if we employ a teacher, and all that teacher does every year is reduce the jail population by one male for that year, one adult male for that year's teaching, they're a winner. So if they keep 5 people out of, if they keep 10 people out of jail, they're $1 million winner for the state. The reality is you don't save money by cutting the education budget. Our concern is that this is driven by the rating agencies. By the way, the same rating agencies who probably would have given the banks that collapsed, the private banks that collapsed in Port Macquarie, a AAA rating. Because they gave a AAA rating to CDOs, collateralised debt obligations, basically pieces of paper which were backed by things like really dodgy housing mortgages, or worse still, credit card debt in South Korea. They went bankrupt. They were given AAA ratings by these people. When those CDOs started to collapse, when it was discovered they were just paper with no value, despite their AAA rating, despite the credit rating agencies saying this is a safe place to put your money, that kick-started an economic collapse that spread through the United States and Europe. And fortunately Australia would have been somewhat isolated from it. But it's the same rating agencies, Standard & Poor's and Moody's, the same rating agencies, and Fitch, the same three rating agencies that did that are now telling the federal government, unless you cut expenditure, we will take away your AAA rating. So the same SPIVs who created the global financial crisis in the first place are now dictating economic policy in New South Wales, with devastating long-term consequences, and with devastating consequences for the most disadvantaged members of our community. It's not just schools, it's also TAFE colleges. The federal government is going to cut 800 teachers and other workers out of the TAFE system. And it's not like the TAFE system has a lot of fat left on it. It has none. In the life of the previous government, in the life of the Reece, Keneally. Did I miss something? The Carr, Reece, Keneally government, in the life of that lot, they cut about $1 billion out of the funding of TAFE. If at the end of the Labor government they've been funding TAFE at the same per student level that they had been funding at the beginning, and you account for inflation, then there would be $980 million a year more going into TAFE. That's a 48% cut to the funding of TAFE. You can't just take 48% out of an institution and not expect bad things to happen. The federal government wants to cut that further. The federal government wants to make up for that by increasing fees by 9.5% on average. Some fees will go up by 20%. We know that increasing fees at an institution like TAFE or at universities drives away people from disadvantaged backgrounds. It means that people who come from families where there isn't a tradition of education will stay away. Even if you say, well, you can pay the fees off later through a HEC system or an income contingent loan, it still drives people away. These are the very people we want to get into TAFE, to get them educated, to get them skills so they can be part of the cultural life, the economic life, the social life of our community. Take away the ability for people to get a job, take away their ability to participate in the life of the community, and you marginalise them. But that's not all our federal government's doing. They've also decided that what they're going to do is take almost all of the funding of TAFE and put it out into a marketplace, and what they call entitlement-based funding. So for everything for Certificate 1, 2 and 3 courses, and presumably later on for Certificate 4 and Diploma and Advanced Diploma courses, but for all of the shorter courses, the lower level courses, there'll be no direct funding for TAFE. The money will if a student leaves TAFE and goes to a private provider, the money follows entitlement. Well, it is a voucher. It's no, I mean, I had an argument with the Director of Training in New South Wales. I call it a voucher system. He said, no, it's not a voucher system. I said, why not? He said, well, there's no voucher. Okay, so it's a virtual voucher system, but it's as good as a voucher. It's the same system. Yeah, it's exactly the same idea as if it were a voucher. What does that mean? It means that TAFE is now in competition against private providers who pay 20%, 30% less than TAFE providers, who run far larger class sizes than TAFE, and who are, many, not all, but some of whom are driven by profit. I got told the other day that Navitats, which is one of the biggest private training companies in Australia, the guy who started Navitats is one of Australia's 10 wealthiest men. Pretty impressive, off the basis of this kind of game. TAFE is a unique institution, and look, I want to be careful when I say this because there are some special purpose registered training organisations do a great job, and I don't want to diss them out. But this isn't about this. This is about core functions of TAFE being privatised. TAFE does a remarkable job because it says every student who comes through our doors, we will do everything we can to make sure that that student leaves with an education and with a skill. Kids who come in with no learning background, who are functionally illiterate, who are functionally innumerate, who have no capacity to learn, TAFE runs courses for those people to teach them how to learn. TAFE for students with disabilities, TAFE does a lot of work to make sure that they can participate, whether they're deaf or whether they have a physical or intellectual disability. TAFE puts a lot of work into making sure that they can have. That's expensive stuff. Nothing I said here is cheap. The private providers won't do that. Private providers don't have to do that. Certainly not to the same extent that TAFE does it. They will run larger class sizes, they will cut corners, they will pay their teachers, they will out-compete TAFE, they will destroy TAFE. This is the beginning of the end for TAFE. It's designed by a guy called Chris Eccles, who's the head of the Department of Premier and Cabinet in New South Wales, one of Barry O'Farrell's first appointments. Chris Eccles formerly worked in the Victorian Department of Education, where he wrecked the Victorian TAFE system. He has a fetish about privatising TAFE. He likes to go home at night and say to his partner, honey, I shrunk the TAFE system. And that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing in New South Wales. That has awful consequences for a society that faces substantial demographic challenges and substantial environmental challenges. You know, the reality of Australia is that we are one of the most vulnerable nations to climate change. We're kidding ourselves if we don't think that the next 100 years aren't going to be really difficult. The way to survive that is twofold. Firstly, to have a skilled workforce, an educated and skilled workforce that can innovate, that can come up with new solutions to new problems. The second way to solve that is to make sure that everybody has a standard of education so they understand the challenges and they can be part of designing a solution. What O'Farrell and Eccles and Piccoli are doing is destroying our school system and destroying our TAFE system. And it looks good for them because they're appeasing the rating agencies, and yeah, maybe we will keep our AAA rating. Keep our AAA rating on our finances, but we will lose our AAA rating on our future. What the Greens are saying very strongly is we have to stop this. We have to build a movement that says no to, just as we build a movement that says we want a price on carbon, we build a movement that says we value our public education system. It is central to our future, it is central to creating a just society, it is central to making sure we have a cohesive society. Our concern remains that if we don't arc up now, if we don't say to people like Leslie Williams and Andrew Fraser and Andrew Stoner, look, the Nationals know what happens on the Mid-North Coast. They know full well that this is not a loyal audience, that there are other people here who can beat you. And they need to hear Leslie Williams in particular, who's a freshly minted Member of Parliament, who got here by spending enough money to threaten the state's AAA rating on her own. She needs to hear from us very loudly, and that's why I'm here in Port Macquarie. That's why I'm starting here in Port Macquarie. She needs to hear from all of us. This is something we won't take lying down. This is something that we feel is urgent for the community, and she needs to stand up for the community. She never promised this would happen. It shouldn't happen.
She said she would help create jobs. This is not creating
this is destroying
jobs.
So I'll just finish by saying, look, thanks so much for listening. I do hope you can join with us on this campaign. You can get active, you can go and see Leslie Williams, you can tell her this is wrong, you can start writing those letters to the papers, you can join in on the 17th of November, when somewhere on the Mid-North Coast, I'm not sure where, 18th of November, on the thank you.
Lake Kaye.
Lake Kaye. And Leslie, right in Leslie's backyard, she's very kind backyard to hold our meeting. So long as it doesn't erode while you're standing there and drown you all, it'll be a great public meeting. I'd urge you to be there. I'll finish by saying this is a very challenging time. But coalition governments are always challenging. This is particularly a challenging time, but it is a time where I think we can win. And I think we can win because we have to win. We really have no choice. Thank you so much for listening. Any questions, comments?